Welcome to the Lockshield Partners Podcast. We believe in financial literacy and love to provide quality information when it comes to areas around financial planning and how it impacts your life. To learn more about what we do and how we serve our clients, visit us at lockshieldpartners.com.
Dan, welcome back. We've got another edition of our Lockshield Partners Podcast, and today we're going to dive into a topic that you and I would both agree is really important.
Indeed, very important.
Distribution rate.
Yeah, really critical for retirement, but really critical for planning leading up to retirement. So let me lob the opening softball. When as a financial planner, when you say or when I say distribution rate, what are we talking about?
Yeah. You may also hear the term withdrawal rate, distribution rate, withdrawal rate. They're really the same thing, but it's simply how much money are you taking out? And if you're looking to apply a formula to it, what percentage of your overall portfolio are you taking out? So, for example, if somebody has a 2% distribution rate on $1 million, well, that's $20,000 a year. That's distribution rate.
Which reminds you or makes people aware that it's not a lot of money.
It's not as much as you might think.
It's not as much as you might think. And it always reminds me of the impact and the power of pension income or Social Security income. So if 20,000 or 40,000 off $1 million is a lot, then you start thinking about, gosh, that 40,000 a year from Social Security, or for people who do have a pension,
it's a big lump sum.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's of course, personal finances are personal, but let's do some rules of thumb. Withdrawal rate. What is where do we start with a withdrawal rate?
The magic number, Dan, over time is about 4%.
That's the classic safe,
that's the
quote
classic
unquote,
safe
withdrawal rate.
And we see that a lot. You may see that in a real life example too, if you are familiar with an endowment.
Sure.
Or a scholarship fund or something like that. You can commonly see in the fine print, they use a 4 or even 4.5% withdrawal rate. So that's kind of the classic. If you have a fairly moderate risk profile,
50-50 or 60-40.
Yeah, half aggressive, half conservative
portfolio,
you can pretty well take 4% off a year, and that should last pretty darn close to perpetuity.
Yeah, I think the academics on that are 60-40 portfolio, withdrawals indexed for inflation, rebalanced
What do you
every
mean by
year.
indexed for inflation?
Yep. So if inflation is 3% this year, then your distribution amount you would increase by 3%.
Got it.
Kind of like your COLA on your Social Security.
Yeah.
And that data is back tested against sequence of market returns. So essentially, if you go back to 1929, my favorite finance professor always used this example. If you go back to 1929 and you use the 4% with the 4% safe, quote unquote, withdrawal rate, and you lived, I think it's at 26 point some odd years, which is the average life expectancy of a retiree at age 65. We don't know how long we're going to live. In a way that would make all of this a lot easier, and in a way would make it a little more complicated in other ways, but we don't know that answer. So the idea is, if I don't want to take out too much too soon, because I don't know how long this money has to last me. And the sequence of market returns, you and I know, is very important, and it's something we have no control over.
When you say sequence of returns, Dan, let's lay it out very basic. What does that mean?
Yeah, so for most people, we talk about average returns of the market. And let's just say the average returns of the S&P 500 is 10%.
Pretty good.
Great. Except it rarely does 10%.
Right. Up 20, down 10, up to whatever, ping-ponging around.
That's exactly right. So here's the real risk of a retiree is I retire at 65 or 62 or 68 or pick your number. The younger you retire, the more risk you have, because in theory, the more time you have to fund a retirement. But the real risk is you have a sequence of bad market returns early.
So you retire, boom, immediate bear market.
And you're taking money out. Now, if you're contributing, you and I know a down market,
That's a great gift.
It works for you. But if you're selling shares, and let's go back to, let's say, a 2008 or 2001, 2002, when the market dropped 50 some odd percent over the course of 18 months, 2 years, if you're taking money out and selling shares, that does permanent damage.
That's tough to stomach.
It's very tough to stomach. And so one of my favorite charts that you and I have in front of us, it's a sequence of market returns. So I'm going to walk you through this. So let's just take, I'm going to take 1989 to 2008.
20-year period.
20-year period, the market averaged 10.36%. Let's just say 10%.
Right at the long-term average.
Right at the average. Someone who retired in 89 and started taking 5%. So we're a little more aggressive. And people say, oh, that's no big deal. 4%, 5%, 6%. But it does make a difference. So if I had $1 million portfolio, and let's just say for our purposes, I put it all in the S&P 500, just to kind of drive home the point. Very aggressive. After 20 years, I've taken out my 5%. I've increased it for inflation every year. So my withdrawals have increased dramatically
over a 20-year time frame.
Over a 20-year period. I lived through the 90s, which was a boom period. And by the time we got in the 2000s and 9/11 and 2008, I was towards the end of my life, my retirement. But my portfolio had gone from $1 million up to $5 million, and then had fallen back to about $3 million. If we reverse those years, let's just say we started in 2008 and went back 20 years.
Okay. Same 20-year period.
Average 10%.
Just in reverse.
Just in reverse. Sequence of returns. Same withdrawals. Same market years. Just opposite returns. You would run out of money in year 18. Ooh, that's huge. So the complete randomness of, hey, was I born in the 1940s and retired, which means I retired in 2000? Or was I born in the 1950s and I retired in 2010?
It matters.
It's huge from a data point of view. And so that's when we talk about withdrawal rate and distribution rate. People kick around the old 4%. No, that's, you can take out more. You can, the market average is 10. Why can't I take out 10? Well, here's an example of 5 and you run out of money.
Yeah.
And our experience, so the things you can do in a down market, well, let's back up. In planning leading up to retirement, being aware of and shooting for a 4% withdrawal rate, which when you back into the math, you go, I need how much money?
I think that's the key. Let's land there for a second.
Yep, let's go.
Because it's really easy to say 4%. Yeah, I can do 4%. I can live on that. But there's a difference between saying 4% or saying $40,000.
Right.
Or 4% or $30,000.
Because to get $40,000, you need
$1 million.
You need $1 million.
If you want 30,000, that's 750,000. So I think taking that 4% number, multiplying it by your overall portfolio, that can sometimes be eye-opening, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. But I think it's important to know.
It's very important to know. And so that's something that someone who is still a couple years from retirement or 5 or 10 years, and they can plan towards that. And then the last thing that I would say to kind of tie this one off is in a perfect world, which neither you nor I live in, it would be great to retire at the end of a down market versus
when markets have been great.
When the markets have been great, because all of a sudden your assets are way up.
Right.
And people tend to think they're going to keep going up. But really, statistically, you're so much better off retiring in 2009 when the Dow was at 6,000.
Right.
Today it's at 40 some odd thousand. Versus going back the other way where I retire and then the market drops 20% or 30 or 40% and I'm taking money out. And when I'm taking money out, what that means practically to a portfolio is I'm selling shares.
And I think kind of to your earlier point, Dan, we don't have any control over when those are going to happen.
That's exactly right.
Nobody does.
But they're going to happen.
They are going to happen. And so practically speaking, if you do retire and then the down market happens, that also doesn't have to mean it's a nail in the coffin.
Absolutely not.
Maybe it's a period of time where you adjust your income for a period of time. Maybe it doesn't really impact you too much because you have plenty of money in conservative assets to cover those distributions.
Right.
That could be a totally different episode.
Sure. And most retired allocations will not and should not be 100% in the S&P 500.
Right. But there is a balance there.
There's a balance there. Yeah. So to drive home the point, sequence of returns matter. We don't have control over that. But from a planning point of view, really gearing towards that safe, quote unquote, 4% withdrawal rate would be a really prudent way to approach it. And then understanding if you have control over when you retire, a really great time to retire is after or in the middle of a bad market as compared to close to all-time highs.
No doubt. No doubt. If you have questions on your personal withdrawal rate, make sure to check out our website at lockshieldpartners.com.